with that Nick Foles topic here, talking about his fantasy impact. Standalone, I don't know, he might be a streaming option. Best case scenario. He had a decent outing here coming in really early in the second quarter against Atlanta in week 3. But beyond Nick Foles, we saw the Allen Robinson breakout, 28 fantasy points from him. What should we expect week in, week out for Allen Robinson and all the Chicago pass catchers?
Well, first of all, I was actually surprised to see them make the pivot to Nick Foles with that timing. Like, Mitch Trubisky had far worse starts to his games in week 1 and week 2. And I know he wasn't great in this one. I mean, he was 13 of 22, 128 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. But he also had like a 50-yard run. They were still in the game. I think they were down by 6 points at halftime. So it was really interesting to see them go ahead and make the pivot when they did. I was actually a bit surprised. But I think Chicago, Matt Nagy, that whole coaching staff is very pleased with the decision. They had the comeback win. And Stef, you asked the question. I think someone that's probably more pleased with the decision than anybody else is Allen Robinson and the rest of these Chicago pass catchers. And we saw it in this one. I know Trubisky was locking in on Robinson a bit early in this game, but we look at the stat line here, 10 catches, 123 yards on 13 targets. And I think a lot of that has to do with the change at the quarterback position to Nick Foles, someone who is a more accurate passer, because one of the biggest problems for Allen Robinson through the first 3 weeks is it wasn't targets. He was getting looked at, but it was just catchable balls. It was that catch percentage. And in this game, we finally saw him come through. Came through with the 1 touchdown, almost had a second one. He did have it, but it got called back on that kind of 50-50 ball with the defender. So great game here for Allen Robinson. If you bought low before this game, Steph, I know it was your start of the week last week, so good hit there. If you bought low on him, congratulations. I think, one, he's going to continue to be a wide receiver 1, but this move is definitely an upgrade for his value. And if he's on your roster, he's someone you're locking in every single week.
Yeah, and what the switch to Foles gives you, we talked about it in the offseason. We said Nick Foles being there really gives Allen Robinson more safety and security. That's why we were smashing on him in the 3rd round after going running back in our drafts, because whether it's Trubisky having a breakout and taking over that starting job, that'd be great for Allen Robinson. If the wheels fall off and Nick Foles comes in, who is more of a wide receiver friendly passer, he had 7 deep ball attempts in this game. For reference, Trubisky has 13 on the year. So in really 3 quarters, we saw a much more of a air it out type of offense with Nick Foles under center, and that's the player that he is. Doesn't have that athleticism that Trubisky has, who may take off when he's under pressure. And Nick Foles, just something about him, he has the magic. So I think he's going to benefit all the pass catchers there. Makes Jimmy Graham an interesting streaming tight end.
Yeah.
In this game, he had 7 targets from Foles. On the day as a whole, he had 10 total targets, caught 6 of them, had 60 yards, and then 2 touchdowns there. Shouldn't expect that type of touchdown volume weekly, but he's a streaming option. If you're in a desperate situation, if he was a guy that maybe you can grab him off your waiver wire and plug him in for 1 week, I think you can do a lot worse.
The thing with Graham, if you're streaming the waiver wire for these super deep tight ends, really you're just looking for a guy with a chance to score a touchdown. And Jimmy Graham actually does have a little bit more volume than these other tight ends that you could be throwing in there hoping for like a 3-catch, 15-yard touchdown game, like a Kyle Rudolph almost. Like, I'd much rather go Jimmy Graham because he's got just as good, if not better, chance of scoring a touchdown. I think he's got 3 touchdowns here in the first 3 games. And then you said it, the volume is there as well. It's not going to be like this every single week, but he's on the field a decent amount. I mean, he's been on the field over 60% of snaps each week. So I think you can definitely expect him to be out there, and you can do a lot worse if you're just putting a flyer out there at the tight end spot.
Any interest in Anthony Miller and by extension from that Darnell Mooney? You guys are kind of splitting that wide receiver 2 role on that depth chart. I think Miller could be an interesting streamer with Nick Foles willing to air it out a little bit more than Trubisky and just a higher quality of those passes. It makes you consider Miller, but not really a guy I'm looking at when he isn't on the field quite as much as we want him to be.
Yeah, I mean, last week, Steph, we were saying Anthony Miller's a cut guy. And I'm honestly fine leaving him on the waiver wire. I mean, if he's on the end of your bench, sure, he's just one of those wide receiver 4 options that you can throw in there. Like, I'd prefer Sammy Watkins. I'd probably prefer Alan Lazard. In PPR, I'd prefer Russell Gage to someone like Anthony Miller. I mean, he did have the touchdown in this game, but only 5 targets, only played 57% of snaps, which was his highest snap percentage of the season. He's played 42%, 40%, and 57% of snaps. To me, in a low volume pass offense, that's just not going to cut it. So Anthony Miller is someone who it's kind of boom or bust with the touchdown. As of now, he's not going to be one of these guys getting 8 to 10 targets a game. Maybe throughout the season they get in a shootout or two, and he ends up getting those looks in good matchups. But on a week-to-week basis, there's just so many other guys I'd rather play than Anthony Miller. So I'm fine cutting him for somebody else or leaving him on the waiver wire for now. Even Justin Jefferson, someone who had a huge game last week, I'd prefer him and his upside over someone like Anthony Miller.
Yeah, and it seems like we've been waiting for multiple years now for that Miller breakout. There's just some guys like Traquan Smith is another one I think
there.
of.
He's a good player.
Exactly. There's just this profile of player who's like this boom upside, boom bust wide receiver that we're waiting for more booms than busts, but still not seeing that yet.